It's been a catastrophe. Basically, everybody stopped working almost instantly. I mean, some people continued to work, but with a much smaller turnover. So even before COVID, the shutdown of everything, people could see that there was less and less clients coming over. I was asking the girls working in vans in my area if they could notice anything, and they said, oh my God, this is way worse than what we've seen with the law criminalizing clients. So if they wanted to make sure that we wouldn't work, they would have started the COVID crisis themselves, the abolitionists. So they could foresee that this would be very complicated. I think many women went back to their countries whenever it was possible, especially women from Bulgaria or from Romania. The people were in Spain, had Spanish papers. So many, in my area, they mostly had Italian papers, so they went back to their families in Italy. There are still some people that are working, and most of the time what I see, every week that goes by, I can see more of my colleagues going back to work, especially the ones that work with internet, because they can't stand being that long without any income.
I have to admit that this moment is the most difficult time of trans migrant sex workers, because it's the time that reveals all the accumulation of the violences and the repressions that we have lived for more than a decade, for more than a century. Sex workers that are excluded socially, politically, and economically. And this is the result that show us that in the crisis, the disaster, like the crisis of coronavirus pandemic, trans migrant sex workers, we are living in a really difficult way of life. We have to go out, try to risk our lives for being arrested, getting contaminated, or to contaminate the others, just only to survive. And nobody deserves this. We as a human being, as a citizen of this world, although we are documented or undocumented, we deserve to have a life, a good life. We deserve to have accommodation, food to eat, the medication, and also money to live, to earn just for living. But as the sex workers today, we don't have any chance to be able to afford this life, just because we are seen as an undesirable population of this system. And this system needs to change. The decriminalization must be put in place with all the social aids to help all the people who are really vulnerable in our community, especially those who are migrants who don't get any aid from the French government. We are not like in Portugal that regulates all the migrants. Here, they want to put sex worker migrants to be arrested and put them in jail, and deport them back to die by coronavirus in their own countries.
Yes, we saw a new criminalization of soliciting because of this lockdown, state of emergency, and people get fined. And indeed, the police are giving fines to sex workers. Some of them actually wrote on their certificate that they were going to work, because it's one of the reasons people are allowed to leave their homes. And the police considered that it wasn't a good justification. So sex workers are fined, as we were with the soliciting laws. But the fine is, I think, is a bit more. So I think it's about 200 euros.
Okay.
The French government seems to be considering only people who has come a salary job or things like that, because they have forgotten most of the people. For example, they don't care about migrants at all. They don't want to do anything to help them. And there are quite a lot of people working who are not concerned by the help, the financial help they will have really hard time. Quite a lot of people, in fact, will not receive any money from the government and will probably lose their job after this, because, for example, for those who work in performance, they won't be allowed to work until next year. So how are they going to live?
And the problem is that, like most workers who are in the informal economy, sex workers have been, on moral grounds, excluded from the labor framework of labor rights, social protection, social indemnities, and all that. So people have to keep working, actually. And when the government is really responsible in forcing us to expose ourselves to the virus because they don't want to plan any special support for sex workers. The only thing they different is the exiting path. So it's only for people who want to stop sex work, and even for these people don't get the help in normal times. So before the virus crisis, since the 2016 law, only 228 sex workers have benefited from this program in 4 years, which is 4 times less than the number of sex workers we have helped through our own communities and the solidarity of the public when we raised money through online fundraising. So we can see, as a community, we are doing much more in terms of solidarity of what the government has done in the last 4 years.
As an association, we need to organize the accommodations, the food, medications by ourselves, and in the same time, we try to do the demand to the public organizations for the mass of all the medical staffs that are necessary. But the thing is that the government never ever responds. The organization that work with the government never ever gives us all the staff. So we just had some of the staffs donated, but by another NGO like Solidarité SIDA, and that is the only one aid that is very concrete that we just received. But before this, we have to say that we didn't have enough support by the public, and all the work that we have done in 1 month is more than 200 cases, and more girls are coming to our place, calling us, asking us for more food, more the stuff that they need. And the stuff that we have been working since the lockdown, I have to say that it's more than 4 years what the government has been done for our community.
There's about 5 million euros every year, which are supposedly aimed at helping prostitutes exit prostitution. The money is not spent as it should be because there are only a bit more than 200 people who benefit from this exit path. So we are very far from the 500 or 1,000 people a year who are supposed to exit prostitution. And we are saying to them, look, because of the health crisis, many people have exited prostitution. We are forced to stop working. So you won. You got what you wanted, except that we have no incomes. We have nothing to survive. So just take a little bit of that money that you don't spend, actually, that you redistribute in terms of budget balance with other things. And it's only a communication, the 5 million euros, because it's less than half of this money is spent. And we say it took just 1 million to help sex workers now who are really in a very critical situation. And the answer from the women ministry is to say, no, there's no way I'm going to give money away from my ministry to the health or other ministries. And we want to keep that for women, which in a way implies that sex workers are not women.